as we have seen, so let's just kind of get into the main event here and talk about the PulseChain prices here. And are the lows in? So we are still in an overall downtrend here for sure. Again, as we talked about the prices at the beginning of the show, we're not far off from the lows. The day after the news of the SEC event on July 31st, so it would have been actually August the 1st that these prices came in, we had Pulse wick down to about 67% or so below the SAC rate. We're at 62% right now. The rest of the ecosystem has really followed suit. So we are right there. It's torturous at the moment for a lot of people. I mean, again, we've talked about balancing scrolling on Twitter, doom scrolling, seeing who's dramatic and who's, first bear market it is in attitude and how they're acting. What do you think, though? We're going to get into this, and we're also going to check out a poll. We have some people in the chat talking about what the prices may be come the fall, because I know there's a lot of thoughts about the fall or winter of this year in the United States being a better time, you would hope, for the ecosystem. But what do you think, Ewok? I mean, the likelihood that the lows are in, because right now, I said it to you the other day, it just sometimes feels like the bottom's about to just fall out of this. Not that it hasn't already at one point, but, you really, anyway, like to DCA into what looks like the beginning of an uptrend and not necessarily, catch the falling knife, as we say, because you never know how far it's going to fall.
Yeah.
But at that same time, it's almost like any buy I'm making right now, I think, in the long run is going to be great. So what do you think? I mean, are we heading for new lows, or where are we going here?
Well, just the other day we had a big seller dumping a bunch. I think we talked about it on the last stream. I think he had done that right before the last stream, dumping batches of like 200 million at a time. I just saw the other day that same person is starting to buy back in. So that's definitely bullish. I think maybe, a lot of people do that. They'll sell big bags to get the price to wick, to hopefully have other people panic sell, and then they'll try to buy back in. I mean, it's a strategy that some people just they enjoy it. They spread the FUD, and then they'll dump a big bag. You get that big candle like we see there on the chart, and then other people panic sell too, and then they slowly buy back in to hopefully get a better rate, end up with more. Now it doesn't always work that way, but sometimes they make out. And I think in relationship to where we are along the way with the chart compared to where Ethereum was at that time, I think you almost have to look, if you can find the information on how many original investors there were into Ethereum. I know they didn't do a sacrifice phase, and I don't remember.
They did an ICO.
It was an ICO. It was a pre-buy. Those people got it at what, 15 cents or something like that, and then it proceeded to dip a good ways. So, but the idea is how many people and how much volume was there at that point? I think Pulse probably has a lot more tokens out there for sale. I mean, we had some pretty big buyers, millions and millions of dollars out of the top even 100 sacrificers. I think they were almost all high six figures, if not more. So, that's a lot. I think it's just going to take a little bit longer to play out, but I think we're kind of in that zone right now. I think Ethereum was, what was it, 74 days or something like that when it's bottom, and now we're on day 90. So, I think that we're pretty close. Like I said, the big wallet that had sold that big bag, now they're buying back in. If anybody else has weak hands, we've got a couple green candles here. I know this is the daily candle. I know they're small, but you got to start somewhere. So it's looking positive. We might come down to this wick and double bottom, but hopefully that's about it. I don't see it going much further. If you are DCAing, do little bits at a time. And like you said, it never hurts to buy in on an uptrend, because if you start buying lower and it keeps going lower and you run out of capital, then it hurts even worse when the bottom does get in and you're not, you don't have anything left. So I think we're pretty close. I think sentiment will change. But again, if the Bitcoin markets do take another little tumble here, um, like we see how this monthly candle plays out here, um, will it affect Pulse? I don't know. I mean, they're not really tied together in any way. There's no liquidity between the two that ties them together. Could we kind of be away from that whole thing? Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But in my opinion, I think we're at the point now where kind of Ethereum was at its bottom. Could be another couple big sellers, but I think we're getting pretty close if we're not there already.
Yeah, and just looking at that chart there, I mean, I'm a fan of just looking at weekly, weekly candles. But I mean, that just to look at that as well. I mean, you obviously see when the SEC news happened right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
So it's
Crypto
good.
Land here says Ethereum had 18 million ICO. Pulse X is over 1.5 billion. So right there's that's kind of what I was getting at. I knew
Right.
it was considerably higher, a lot more money, a lot more capital that was tied up, and I'm probably assuming even more time. And the time is the big thing that people went without their money.
Yeah.
Which kind of urged them to dump whenever it launched, because
Good
again
point.
they were over leveraged, and didn't expect to be 2 years until they got a product. So that definitely plays a lot into it. So, yeah, I mean, when you look at it like that, 18 million compared to 1.5 billion between the two, yeah,
I mean, it's a whole different world.
it is a completely different world.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because like the idea, like you just said, Ewok, about we know a lot of people kind of over leverage themselves with those sacrifices, and it's you would think after that amount of time. Now, if they were that irresponsible, maybe not, but you would think after that amount of time and waiting so long, that really makes customers generally value the thing even more. Waiting with bated breath for something, it makes you value that product even more.
Right.
But again, if they really didn't handle their money well and really needed it, and it was that long of a gap, because yeah, it was nearly exactly 2 years since the PulseChain actual sacrifice began until there was a product. So, I mean,
Yep.
yeah, you can't control what everybody does, but I think a lot of maybe some of the people in the chat, the smaller fish in the ecosystem and stuff like that, have not sold. That's kind of the interesting thing. There are people that are sticking in there, and that's really what's going to matter when we get to this bull cycle, is these people that have held, the smaller investors from the beginning. Not necessarily, I'm not saying everybody that's small, but the non-whale ones that are sticking this out, and then the influx of huge retail dollars as we get into 2024 and 2025.
Yep.
That's when I think we'll really see the movement. So
Yep, for sure.